when he was mayor, and they still aren't. So it's, the reason I bring it up is the timesheet showed 12 hours that he got paid for. And if you look at all the timesheets throughout the year, that's where they indicate comp time. And no comp time was indicated on there.
Right. And
So,
it was an error of omission, absolutely.
but then he got, his police log said he worked 7, 8 hours.
Yes.
And then another sheet showed he was on vacation.
Right. So,
And then he taught at the academy for 7 hours,
all
so.
right. And this is something that you brought up before, and so we do
Yeah.
have the background on it. And like I said, I'm working with the chief to make sure that the timesheets are adjusted and delineated. We haven't done it. We are looking at the new fiscal year component and how to get that addressed.
I appreciate it, like I said, I want to put this to bed, and I appreciate the information you gave me.
Like I said.
The resident slander and council members, I can send you an email on that.
Great.
Is that fine? I think that was one of your questions. The false statements made that you asked on, in more detail. I think I put 2 dates, the September 23rd meeting and October 14th. At that meeting, I asked you if any disposition was on any offenses. You said none was done. Nothing was concluded.
I listened to the meetings. I did not recall hearing that.
Yeah.
No work is done. Well,
The reason why I say it because there's an email between you and Heather saying that you can disregard offense number 10. I'm going to put a letter in the chief's file.
yes.
But when I asked you, you said nothing was done at that time.
I'm still working with Darian. She is out. And so she and I have got to sit down and work through.
Oh, so that's not number 10. Okay.
Yeah.
The email said that, that's why I want to bring it
I'm
up.
still working on that,
Okay.
like I said.
Okay.
All of the 11.
So, the inappropriate email regarding violation of rights, I sent out an email, and I figured we can address it that way, so I'm not going to bring it up, like I promised you. We talked about the building inspector, the timeline, First Amendment rights, like I said, I'll address it in the email for you.
Great.
And then we can hopefully address it the next meeting, put that to bed. The Larry Chester, and well, people are asking, Lieutenant Roman's old car, it's being taken home. And, we talked about the budget and the spending the extra money and all that, and they were asking who's taking it home. I'm assuming Larry Chester is.
Yes.
With him being a part-time temporary police officer, taking home a police car, and someone say, I'm not sure, he was 25, 30 minutes away, back and forth. Is this a common practice? Are we allowing part-time officers to bring our township cars home?
I'll look into it. We have previously done that. He is doing a lot of work as lieutenant as far as the some of the administrative functions, because we are currently 1 full-time police officer down and 3 reservists. Is that correct, Chief Thomas? So it is appropriate at this time for him to be able to have that car and utilize it because he is filling in and providing backup for the administrative function.
Okay. So you know about it?
Yes.
Did you give permission, I guess, in writing?
No, not in writing.
Okay, because the ordinance says it has to be in writing from the mayor. Our laws say it has to be in writing.
We'll do that.
So, thank you. The slandering I told you, I email you on. Update on the Don Ellis. And the new information was, and at the last time I mentioned that you went to the sheriff's department, we addressed it. Just found out after you went, Conroy went down there to try to reopen a case against Mr. Ellis about the false report, and they wouldn't even open it. They said, no, we're not opening this. We're not even going to entertain it.
Okay, good.
So, just I don't know if you're aware that Mr. Conroy went down and also gave a statement against Mr. Ellis.
No, I wouldn't
And the
be
sheriff's
involved in that. I wouldn't know that.
Well,
So
You're the mayor. I figured you would got into that.
You stand corrected. I didn't ask them to open it at all.
I said they didn't open it. I didn't say you asked.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah,
There was
they
a
did
reference
no.
in there.
No, you went down 3 days after the September meeting.
And
after
I am
mentioned.
not part of a corrupt Howey government.
I didn't.
And you attacked both the mayor and myself in emails and on postings. And I would like an apology that I simply did my job. And
How did you do your job?
Please let him.
Well, I'm lit.
may I, okay,
No. You can't. Thank you.
I can't challenge your honesty.
Honestly,
accuracy.
matter of fact, I'll read the emails for you. I'll read them out loud to the public if you want, because they're dead on. It's so obvious what you're doing, Mr. Conroy. I see all the emails. You see all the emails between the chief, you, Martha Nebel. Nothing to John Scott or I.
I think
We're always being left out. It's the three of you. So how are you defending that? So I'm simply
I get an
saying,
email and I send it to Rick and I say, for your information.
I'm simply saying, Mr. Conroy, that you went down after Martha went down, I'm sorry, Mayor McFarland, and tried to sway the sheriff's department, because why else would you go down there and give a statement?
May I read my statement?
Rather than,
Mayor, may I read my statement?
I know, yes, he can, so he finishes. Rather than looking into the allegation of him making a false police report against the 83-year-old man.
Okay.
Rather than doing that, you went down and tried to go against Mr. Ellis. But read your statement.
Okay, you keep using the word false, and nowhere in the sheriff's report was it false. However, the statement, after I heard that Martha had a similar situation, I called the officer and I said I would like to make a statement about Mr. Ellis. Based upon Mr. Ellis visiting my house in November 2018, post-election. Shortly after the election, Mr. Don Ellis came to my home, not to congratulate me, he ran against me, if you people maybe don't recall that, but to further discuss the stalking incident of Mr. Ellis's granddaughter that occurred approximately, I think it was 4/4/18, about 6 months earlier, and to complain about Chief Thomas's action at the time. He reviewed his version, Mr. Ellis reviewed his version of the alleged stalking and said the chief should have stopped this guy under some pretense to find out what he was doing in Howey. I had been previously informed of the incident, and I had asked the chief one simple question. I think everyone in the audience would ask a chief or a councilman the same question. Chief, did you follow the law? The chief is not allowed to choose which laws, hopefully, he wants to enforce. The chief replied that he followed the law. Mr. Ellis replied he did not care that the chief followed the law, that he was a law officer, that when he was a law officer, and by the way, he was in Orlando, I don't know if it was Orlando or Orange County, that his philosophy, you do as a policeman whatever it takes. And by the way, my wife overheard parts of this conversation, so she's my witness. Had he taken the law in his hand, and that he had actually taken the law in his hands at time when he was on duty in Orlando. He said he knew that I was a supporter of the chief, but he, Don Ellis, was out to get the chief and was not satisfied how this incident was handled. I told him the chief followed the law, that's all I could ask. Mr. Ellis proceeded to angrily leave my house and left saying I was stupid. Later in another email, Mr. McGill, as challenging the integrity and honesty of Mayor Martha McFarland, I found it very disrespectful and dishonest on the part of Mr. McGill. Am I too making up a story about a witness other than myself? I think not. It's come to my attention, even the FDLE report Mr. Gill had filed against the chief, without the mayor or the council's knowledge, which he once denied, he stated the FDL was aware that Mr. Ellis was following the chief. Finally, to all of you, let me get some water here, please. Finally, to all of you who saw or listened to Mr. McGill read offense number 11, the Sheriff's Department once again found all the claims unsubstantiated, in their words. I'd say that is a far cry from Mr. McGill's statement. The chief filed a false police report. In fact, the Sheriff's Department advised that the alleged stalking was a misdemeanor stalking perhaps, And if it was a misdemeanor, it should be pursued by the state attorney's office, and that it was not a felony offense. So with that, I left it, and I simply did my civic duty, because I've had other neighbors tell me other stories about Mr. Ellis's, whether he was stalking or not stalking, or whether he was just kind of following the police chief, which was one report. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. I just wanted to make you aware that, I don't know if you knew that the report was sent, or the statement was sent to Sheriff's Department. The other thing is the police study that we brought up for the Sheriff's Department.
That is the audit. If you look at the audit
Yeah.
in there, read that through. It actually talks to several of your points.
Yeah, but when I asked for the study, we get a cost to see what it cost to cover the town. That's what I'm talking about.
Sorry.
It's not a problem. And we had the last budget meeting, and I said right at the budget meeting, I listened to it again when Mayor Nebel, was Mayor Nebel at the time? Yeah. Said that get it in writing, and at that meeting I said yes, I'll go down to the Sheriff's Department and get a quote or a study or whatever, just so we have an idea what to base it on. So we were all aware of it. And then I asked you at that last meeting, because the sheriff wasn't emailing me back, that you've been in contact, or the sheriff contacted you.
I sent you the email. It was actually the sheriff that reached out to us, to Chief Thomas, to make him aware that you had.
Yeah, I knew that,
request.
because you made it, the meeting said he reached out to you, and I knew it didn't exist.
No, I said we received a notification. But anyway, I listened to it today, and that is my recollection.
Okay. Yeah, can we,
I had said at that point that we would do an internal impact analysis so that we would know what to ask for. And that is something that has to be done with everything that we've got going on right now. I don't know if it can be done immediately. We really do need to look at what are we going to ask for? Are we asking for, 6 officers, 2 daytime, 2 nighttime? Are we going to do what Mineola does with outfitting all of them? Are they going to be here? Are they going to just be patrollers? What exactly do we need? And when we do that, then we can determine the feasibility. You said that the sheriff had told you that he could do it for less, I believe you said?
what's that? No, he gave an example. He said what you need is at least 1 officer during the day, and he's recommending 2 officers at night.
Right.
Currently, we only have 1, but he's saying for officer safety, he's recommending 2.
Right.
But with that study, it's not going to cost anything. So he can come up with a number to show exactly, he'll do his own study as far as what we need, the manpower, how much it's going to cost, and he just present it to us. It's not going to cost us a dime, so we have an idea.
When I saw him at the Florida League of Cities luncheon, he actually said to me that he didn't think he could do it for what we were currently paying.
Okay.
And so, again, I would like to determine what our current needs are. We have a police force that supplies us with not only the patrolling, which the sheriff's office doesn't really like to patrol right there.
Yeah, well,
So,
yeah.
And they patrol, they provide services like looking at houses while people are on vacation. They do check-in on our older citizens. They do many, many things that we are so lucky to have a small town and a police force that provides us with these other services.
Sure, I just want to give those residents an option to show them, and that when I talked to the sheriff, he was more than willing to give the study. He said, listen, it's not going to cost you a dime, we'll do it, this way you have an idea.
But what are we asking for? That's my concern.
What's that?
I want to make
Oh,
sure we're asking
yeah.
apples to apples.
Yes, and I told him that. I said,
That's right.
what do you provide Mineola? They have their own station there, I think it's 14 guys. I think their cost was like 1.39 million, 390 million, 1.3 million, something like that. Mind you,
It's minimal.
it's Mineola.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
he
the other
said,
thing is that-
and he said, you're not even a third of what you would need in your town for Mineola.
Right.
So,
The cost that was of concern to me is the $120,000 to outfit a deputy when they come in, because that's what
what was the number?
120,000.
I was told 65, but okay.
Okay. Well, I have to go back and look. Now that I said that out loud, I could be.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, if we had it in front of us from the sheriff, we wouldn't be like guessing or speculating or.
Right. But I do want to know what we want to ask for, because just because they come back and say to
Yeah.
us, we would provide this, this is what we think you need, I am hesitant to do that.
And I would say to them, what we want is what we have right now. Can you match it? Can you save us
How do we
money?
tell them what we have? That's why we need
He-
an impact study to outline exactly what we have.
He's the sheriff of this county. He's the head law enforcement agent. He knows what we have and what we do. He sees the call volumes, the UCR reports. They know exactly, what we need.
I don't think he sees we check on Ms. Romano at the bottom of Magnolia every day to make sure that she's ambulatory, and that's what our town is. That's the basic neighborly community that we are. And I want to make sure that we continue that and have that in our scope and focus as well. So,
Are we gonna give them an answer though?
give who an answer?
The attorney for Lake County Sheriff's, they've been going back and forth with Heather.
Well,
And-
it was one email.
Yes, I talked to him on the phone, and he had said, I had asked for some follow-up information from the mayor because I got an email out of the blue from the attorney saying, hey, do you have time to talk? And I said, I have no idea what this is about. So I asked the mayor what it was about, and the county's position is they don't want to get in the town's business until the town is ready for them to.
Yes, and that's why they're waiting to see.
They want a consensus from the town council first.
Yes.
So you wanna,
I want to understand what we're going to ask for, and then come back and agree that that's what we're going to ask for. That's the scope of the work that we want them to bid on, and then go forward with that.
basically full coverage for the town, patrolling the town, not just showing up because a call occurred. And basically the services we have now, how much would it cost?
Do we supply the cars? Do they supply the cars?
They supply the
Do we
cars.
supply the vests?
Well,
But they don't.
But they tell you all that though. When they do
But
this,
that's what they want to know when we ask them for a bid. They're going to come back to us and say, do you want to supply the cars or do you want us to supply the cars? Like they do in Mineola. Mineola supplies the cars.
okay,
Mineola supplies the vests. Mineola supplies the body cams, and so are we asking for them to do that, or are we going to continue to do that on our own?
Yeah.
And outbid those, and then are those our deputies? Are they designated for Howie, so that every day we see John Smith, and we know John Smith is our guy. We don't see John Smith and then Joe Blow and then Harry,
and everything you're asking, he'll provide. All we have to do is say, yeah, let's, we have nothing to lose to show, they may be more. We have nothing to lose by asking.
I've just given you a bunch of options and you said, yes, they'll do it
They'll
all.
answer that for us, so then we'll see on paper exactly what we get. If we get the paper cars, the best, guns, whatever it may be, we'll see it. So like I said, we have nothing to lose. We go to the residents, they're complaining about the taxes, how high they are, the millage rate, and the cost of the police department. At least we can show them what it's gonna cost if we have Lake County Sheriff's come in. It can't hurt. So hopefully maybe next meeting, you can think about it. I know, but it's the simple, like I said, giving them a call, email, saying, yeah, go forward, come up with something. So, we talked about de-annexation. Hopefully, maybe, I know the residents were asking why it wasn't, a couple of them asking why it wasn't on the agenda, because it's a pretty important item, and thank you for bringing it up. Maybe in the future, if we talk about it,
Sure.
we can put it on there so they can see.
I can ask them, or tell the mayor, or ask the mayor if she can put my items on there so everyone knows.
Especially
what
that
it's supposed to
item,
be.
because it's so-
Absolutely. And I'll probably give an update on it frequently.
Yeah, and for them,
Absolutely.
because like I said, there's a lot of,
No, it's completely out of fairness to the residents, I agree.
yeah, there's a lot of questions out there and need to be answered, so. That's it.
Councilor Scott, you didn't have anything, but do you have anything?
I didn't want Tom to come here all the way from Volusia County and charge us for, I know he doesn't charge us to come here, but he does charge us for his time, to talk about the sidewalk that he was talking with the state about.
The FDOT has not gotten back to us yet on that, and it also is not on the MPO plan yet. We had done the bicycle study, and in
Okay.
yeah, we had talked about making our sidewalks ADA compliant, providing on-ramps and connecting the sidewalks to the edges of the road. That's all FDOT right-of-way and responsibility. And it is the same with the discussion that we had for the facade changes in the building, that's FDOT sidewalk there and right-of-way. And we've got to understand whether they are going to actually entertain that or not. I know that they had said that they may be able to do the connector sidewalks, the study for this connector sidewalk from Venezia to the sidewalk in front of the, yes, to Lakeview, thank you. But we still haven't gotten any word back from them at all.
I didn't want him to come here and just tell us, no, we don't have that.
Yes, well, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, we are done. Oh, April, I'm so sorry, you're here. Thank you.
I just will leave it back there.
So April, if you'll just introduce yourself to everybody, and then if you'll go through it in brief.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm April Shipping, partner with CRI, in charge of your financial statement audit. It sounds like you had a couple audits to talk about tonight. I think you all have a bound copy of the financial statements. I can go into as much painful detail on the numbers or as little as you prefer. The key things that you really want to know
Yes,
is
the key.
it was a clean audit. We were able to give a clean opinion, which means we were able to say that the numbers presented in these financial statements are materially correct. There are no material misstatements. We have a reasonable assurance. So auditing has lots of wiggle words, but basically these are numbers that you can rely on as the accurate numbers for the town for the year ended September 30th, 2018. We did have a number of findings this year. Mainly internal controls that we thought could be improved. We are required to actually look at all of your controls over all your significant processes and let you know as governance when we think there are some improvements that could be made. We do understand that we do a lot of small towns and smaller counties, and when you have a very limited number of fiscal staff, it's very common that the cost benefit of a control may not be there to implement it. We still have to say that there's a control deficiency, but a lot of towns will decide that it's just not cost benefit to hire 3 extra people to double check everyone's work. So I'm happy to go through those findings if you'd like, but it's not required. It's really at the pleasure of the commission.
So I have read through these. I don't really need any more detail on the findings.
I just had a couple questions with some of the findings.
Go ahead.
Yeah, seriously. You talk about, and I know a couple things that you're looking at past audits were repeat offenders on a lot of things. And a lot of it has to do with training. And but you don't come up, and I don't think it's your job, recommendations as far as how we can overcome that obstacle, as far as, because it's the same thing over and over. So,
So if I can happy to respond to that. Right now you have a town clerk who is primarily responsible for everything. And so the finances are just a very small part of her daily duties. And then you have a very, very part-time accounting person, Russ, who is here,
12 hours, Monday, Wednesday.
Very limited time, which, there's really just so much people can do when you don't really have the resources. You don't have enough bodies who are putting the time in to do the work. So given the resources that your finance department has, it's absolutely reasonable that we would see these kind of control deficiencies. To eliminate them, my recommendation would be either hire a qualified person on a closer to full-time basis to assist them, to assist Russ and Darian to be able to focus on some of this, or get a consulting firm and another CPA firm to come and maybe add that layer of internal controls on a part-time basis, but dedicated just to finances. Again, it's cost benefit that the town would need to decide if it's worth the extra cost to hire an additional person or to bring in a consultant to reduce the risk of these internal controls.
Thank you.
and real quick, the fines you're saying, the $500, how often is that? You said something about here, you get fined for penalties. Are we being fined?
You are not.
Okay.
No. The state could do that.
All right, it's
The
just
state
wanna-
has not.
You know,
And I have never seen the
We really
state
don't need
actually
that,
do
so
it.
yeah,
I've never seen the state do it, so,
okay.
but it could.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Why are we getting this report in October of 3? A whole year's passed, and what can we do in the future to get it? What's that? All these other small towns, how long does it take to get their audit done?
6 months.
So this requirement by the state is to have it done within 9 months by June 30th. That's a state requirement to submit to the Auditor General. The real delay in this year was your lack of dedicated staff. Darien was, from our perspective, pulled in a lot of directions this year. And when Russ is here part-time 2 days a week, we'll ask for something on a Monday, maybe get it on a Friday, maybe it's not what we need, and then we'll have to ask for it again the next Monday and get another version on the next Friday. It really drags the process out. We had, actually I have a really short timeline, just to give you real numbers and not made up numbers in my head. We were actually scheduled to start field work January 7th. We had worked with Darien on that to try to accelerate the audit and get it out sooner. There's a very few basic things we need to start, and one is just a trial balance. It's a list of your accounts and the amounts in each one. And the year before we had come out and not had things ready, which had delayed the process, and it costs us a lot of money when we do that. We didn't want to do that this year, so I basically said we can't come out till we have this. And so every time that would get close, I'd give her a week's warning. I'd say, well, let's reschedule in 2 more weeks. We did that until, I think it was February 20th. So it was a month and a half that we had to reschedule our books to get your town's audit on our calendar with our appropriate staff every 2 weeks for 6 weeks to even get out here. And that was just with the basics available to us. That still needed a lot. So it's not anybody's fault. It's not that anyone wasn't trying their hardest or doing really good work. You know, I certainly don't want to sound like I'm throwing Darien under the bus in the least, because she's been wonderful to work with. It's just a resource thing. When we sat out here for weeks and we could see she was pulled constantly to deal with other town business. And normally we would see a full-time finance person that we could rely on, that would be the one that would go get us the bank statements we needed or things like that. And when Russ was only available half-time, you know, half days, 2 days a week, it just really slows the process down.
That's more than half the reason you'd say.
I would say that's 90% of the reason. We had appropriate staff. We had the time to dedicate it to it. What happens is when we get big delays during our block that we've scheduled to be here, and we don't get to finish because we don't have everything we need, then we're fitting you in other jobs. And so we don't know when the next piece of information is going to show up. Maybe it shows up next week, 2 weeks, and then we got to pull people back off to handle that and wrap it up. It's very, very inefficient. I will say that we took a ginormous loss doing this work this year. Just because of how many times we had to pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down. It was incredibly inefficient. And again, nobody's fault. It's a resource. It's a resource problem. I think Russ and Darien do a wonderful job, and they do the best that they can with the resources that they have. Every year, financial requirements get more complex and more complex between the Governmental Accounting Standards Board and the Auditor General and the state legislature. They put new reporting requirements, new compliance requirements constantly on small towns and, you know, giant counties alike, and they don't really understand those unintended consequences of making everything more complicated.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No. I would entertain a motion to approve the audit.
Any questions from the audience,
Oh,
maybe?
well, we have to have a motion before we
Okay.
do it.
So moved.
Do you have any questions on the audit from the audience?
I'll get out of your way.
No? And I think we should do a vote.
Councilor Scott,
Yes.
Councilor McGill.
Yes.
Mayor McFarland.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Conroy.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We've really enjoyed working with your town.